Sir, good morning to all. Sir, good morning to all. On behalf of our NSS and the college, I request our principal to welcome the chief guest and the participants in this August webinar. Thank you, sir.
The most respected resource person of this international webinar, Dr. Sureshkumar BALASUBRAMANIAN, Associate Professor from Monash University, Melbourne, Australia. Respected Dr. S. Palanisamy, Dean Extension, my dear faculty members of the NSS unit, Dr. Yelangovan, Dr. Sureshkumar, Dr. Shyamala Vasanthi, and my dear participants, both faculty and students from all over India, I cordially, wholeheartedly inviting you on behalf of Dr. SNS Rajalakshmi College of Arts and Science, Coimbatore, Tamil Nadu, for this international webinar on challenges and opportunities for Indian youth in the 21st century. It is really a very good topic that has been chosen by the NSS unit of Dr. SNS Rajalakshmi College of Arts and Science, and a very highly talented resource person was selected to deliver the most important topic required for this particular situation is challenges and opportunities for the youth. So I would like to take 2 minutes before handing over the session to the resource person. There are so many challenges and opportunities that are lying in front of us after COVID-19. Still the COVID-19 is in progress. But during the COVID-19 and after the COVID-19, there are so many challenges and opportunities. I would like to classify those things into 3 parts. One is the challenges and opportunities for the concerned person, and other one is the challenges and opportunities for the family of the person, and third one is the challenges and opportunities for the society in which that particular person is living. So as far as the particular person is concerned, the particular person, the person or the student or the whoever it may be, they have to concentrate on 2 important aspects as far as the challenges and opportunities are concerned. For its oneself or myself or whatever, whoever it may be, the most important thing is the well-being of the mind and the physical body. The 2 important things that we have to concentrate at the present situation: well-being of our mind and well-being of our physical body. So as an educated youth, you know how to make use of your knowledge to keep your mind and body fit. This is the time in which most of them are within the home without any work. So there is a possibility for a setback of physical structure or a physical endurance, which may lead to stress in the mind also. And reverse is also possible. There is a setback in the mindset, and that may lead to a setback in the physical nature of the human being or the concerned person. So one person has to concentrate on these 2 things, and they have to balance during this period. The second one I want to inform to the individual is that the family. So every family is stressed right now, one way or other. Therefore, as an individual, what we have to do? We have to do only 2 things. As I said, for the individuals, the similar 2 things are available. The first one is boosting the morale of the family. So moral boosting is very, very important for a family. So as an educated youth, we have to be support you in boosting the moral values or in boosting the morality of the entire family members. And we have actually also the second one. So moral and financial are the two important things that an individual has to concentrate for the family. Coming to the society, the most important thing for an individual is to educate the society. Whatever thing you know, you educate to the society at free of cost. That is what I want to say. If you know certain things, you educate that society at least maximum to the extent of free of cost, because the entire society is running financial crisis, and everyone is in problem. Therefore, at the possible extent, you try to disseminate your knowledge with the society and educate in every respect what you have already learned. That is one thing. The next one is direct support to the society. So there are so many volunteers, something like NSS units. They do a lot of volunteering work as in the form of a support during this period of time. So these are the these are the 2 points as far as the society is concerned. For the individual own well-being, for the family's well-being, for the society's well-being has to be concentrated during this period of time, which I think that it has got a lot of challenges and opportunities. So those things can be deliberated during this webinar by our resource person, Dr. Suresh Kumar. Of course, there are other participants during this meeting can also deliberate at the end of the session. Thank you, one and all. I welcome all of you for this webinar. Thank you. Now I request our resource person, Dr. Suresh Kumar, to give his views on the challenges and opportunities for Indian youth in 21st century.
So thank you, sir, for your motivating inaugural address, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Can I start now?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, sir, so for that kind words that you have given, and it is an honor for me to be giving this talk here in front of someone whom I admire a lot, and I will come to it in a minute. I just want to put my slides ready first, maybe just to make sure everything is all right. So can you all see my slides?
No, sir, not yet, sir. Please share, sir.
Are you able to see it now?
No, sir, not yet.
Yes, sir, we can see.
Oh, just a minute. Okay, so I have to try again. Okay, it was just a time late. I'll wait for it to come up.
Yeah, it is visible.
It's visible. Okay. Good morning, everyone. And my name is Sureshkumar BALASUBRAMANIAN, and I'm an associate professor at the School of Biological Sciences at Monash University, Australia. So it's always customary for us to thank the traditional owners of this land in which I am staying here, which are the Australian Aboriginals, and this land belongs to the Kulin Nations people, and we like to pay our respects to the elders past and present before we start our presentation. I also want to acknowledge my lab funding, which is basically given by the Australian Research Council, National Health and Medical Research Council, and also the Department of Innovation, Industry, Science and Research, and Monash University. So with that, I want to start talking about the challenges and opportunities for Indian youth in the 21st century. So as I mentioned, I work at the Monash University, and Monash University is among the top 100 universities in the world. It's ranked somewhere between 50 to 70, depending on the kind of university ranking that you actually look at. And we are the largest university in Australia. And we have about 40,000 students in a variety of different courses. And I am at the School of Biological Sciences. This building that you see is the building, and my lab is situated in the second floor, somewhere here. If you can see the mouse, okay. And my lab is known as the SKB Lab, where science is fun. So I have a website which is skblab.org, and I'm also available in Twitter at hashtag at SKB Lab. So if you are interested to follow our work, please look into our website and also follow us through the Twitter for whatever we actually do. We are one of the labs which is quite reasonably well known in the area of research which is related to plant biology. So I'll come to it in a minute. And this was a proud year for us because this is my first PhD student who just now became a professor at one of the leading Chinese universities. So it's kind of nice to see. I always know how pleasing it is for a teacher to sort of see their students succeed, and here is one of our own people going there. So this is my lab, just to give you who are the people whom I'm working with. So, yeah. So this is Craig Dent, and we have people from international students from everywhere. So we have people from India. This person is from Iraq, and we have Australia and Sri Lanka, and so on and so forth. This is Sridevi, my wife, and these are my two kids who are over here. And what you see here is the first thing I want to tell you. It's actually a Masterchef competition that is run in my lab. So what you are seeing here are all scientists who are doing their PhDs, but all the dishes that you see on the table are things that everything was made by my students. And I can assure you that it was all of absolutely great quality. Why am I showing you this as a first thing? When I quite a while ago moved outside to India, out of India, and went into the can you all hear me? Sorry guys, can you hear me? Am I audible?
Yes, it's audible.
Okay, thank you. So the reason I'm showing this is, unlike the students in India,
Please mute all, sir.
could I request the participants to mute your mic because there is an echo. Other people may not be able to hear well. Thank you. So the reason I'm showing this is, most of us in India, particularly the youth, particularly the students, we live in a very privileged life. Even when we go into the hostels or anywhere in college time till the time, the food is prepared by somebody, and you pretty much actually have a very luxurious life as a student. You don't really have anything to really worry about. Whereas the students here, in most of the Western countries, after 18, they are often not there living with their parents, and they are on their own, which means they actually take either government support, student loans, and for their living expenses, they have to actually earn their money, which means they learn everything from cooking to all kinds of jobs that are out there. So in the first place, I want you to recognize the privilege that you get as a student when you are working, or when you are living in India. And it is very hard to recognize it. I recognized it when I went for the first time, when I went there outside India, to see that, okay, now I have to cook everything, and it was very, very difficult. And I always say a good scientist should be someone who can do experiments very well, should also be able to cook well, because it is all about putting the right ingredients. It is like doing a nice chemistry experiment, but you do this in a kitchen and you actually do very well. So most of our students do this. So that's the first thought. This is just to get you going. The second thing I want to start off is to tell you my connection with Coimbatore. I came in 1988. Hello, could I request the participants to mute their phones, please? Thank you. So in 1988, I arrived to do a bachelor's in biochemistry at the Kongnad Arts and Science College. And there are a few people who actually influenced me very, very heavily. And one of them, probably the person who had the maximum influence, is your current Dean Extension, Dr. Palanisamy sir. And he had a vast influence on the way in which I was thinking about things in my overall growth and development. And effectively, I would say he is the one who actually made a young, kid who was kind of directionless in some sense to actually have a bit of a serious direction and actually make my change your life and my life in a very, very serious way. This was the first year of my time in Kongnadu, and second year, third year. And by the time guys, could you please mute your mic? Hello?
Excuse me, sir. You have an option to mute all, sir. You please mute all.
Oh, wait a minute. Let me just see that. How that? Yeah.
Sir, pick members in that two icon is there, no, sir? That people. How many people participants?
Yeah.
In that you can have an option at the top, mute all. You can see the participants, sir. How many participants? That two heads. In that icon, at the top, you can have an option, mute all.
I'm not sure where I find that option. That's where.
That icon is there, na, sir? Video, audio, chat box, and
Sir, please unmute yourself.
Can you see my slide? Can you see my slides clearly?
sharing against, sir. It is not there.
Okay, just a minute. Okay.
Yes, sir. We can see. Yes, sir. We can see.
Okay.
Now screen is visible.
That's okay. It's fine. That's okay. Okay. Can you see me? Can you see the slides now, please?
Yes, sir. We can
Yes,
see.
sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. Sorry that I apologize for my technical incompetence. All right. So this was my third year at the college, where I actually started writing about the contribution of students in this is my first publication. Now I have more than 50 publications in international journals, but this is the first time that I actually published. And I think for me to get to this stage, it was your dean's contribution was quite important. Okay, so I also wanted to sort of share you my journey a little bit. So this is my village, Malupati, which is in the Dharmapuri district. And this is the school where I studied. And after that, after Kongunadu Arts, and I did my master's in Baroda, and then I spent some time in Bangalore before I ended up doing a PhD in Zurich in Switzerland, followed by a postdoctoral work in Germany, Tübingen. And then I started my lab at University of Queensland in Brisbane, and now here at Monash University. Okay, so that sort of tells you who I was. I want to, all of you are young people, adventurous, daring to go and do whatever it is. But I wanted to sort of try to tell you, remind you one Tirukural. For those of you who are not from Tamil Nadu, I'll just translate this briefly. There is a Kural which says, Anjudu Anjamai Pedamai, Anjudu Anjal Arivar Thoril. Effectively, it means that you need to be afraid of things that you need to be afraid of. And there is also another one which says, Edirada Kakum Arivinar Killai Adira Varuvadur Noi, which means that prevention is basically better than cure. And under the COVID circumstances, I would urge all of you to take precaution and prevent yourself from getting infected. So prevention is obviously better than cure. Okay, so why am I here? I'm here to talk to you today because of on the occasion of the International Youth Day. So first I want to tell you what is the International Youth Day. All the youth always know about Valentine's Day quite easily. With thanks to some of the governmental initiatives, we also know about Yoga Day, and we might know about Independence Day and Republic Day. But what is the International Youth Day? So International Youth Day was proposed by the World Conference of Ministers responsible for youth in the 1998. There was a conference held in Portugal between the 8th to 12th of August. And at the end of the conference, they suggested to the United Nations that the 12th of August be observed as the International Youth Day. And every year, this day is now being observed internationally as the International Youth Day, and every year there are different themes that are actually being produced. So the United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres for this year sort of said, I call on leaders and adults everywhere to do everything possible to enable the world's youth to enjoy the lives of safety, dignity, and opportunity, and contribute to the fullest to their great potential. So the whole idea is, if a youth recognizes their potential, and if they realize it, then the world will be a much, much better place. So the whole idea of International Youth Day is effectively to try and make you realize your potential and help you achieve your great. And this year's theme was youth engagement in global action. Your principal referred to your role in the context of your family, in the context for yourself, your responsibility for yourself, and your second responsibility for your family, and the responsibility for your society. So what the International Youth Day theme this year requests you to be engaging at multiple levels, at the personal level, at the family level, at the community level, and as well as at the global level. So that's the idea of the theme of this. And in this case, you also, the suggestion from the UN is that youth get involved in every decision making and every debating that's potentially available to you. In this context, I wanted to sort of bring about some ideas that I've thought of. Obviously, there are enormous challenges and enormous opportunities available all the time, and we won't be able to cover everything. But I thought I can try and talk about 5 different things of importance, which I'm considering to be challenges. And then I also wanted to try and take you through how those challenges can be potentially considered in the context of opportunities as well. And then also present you some of the unique opportunities that youth in India have, which others may or may not have to the same level. So I wanted you to recognize in a global context where do we fit in and what are our potential challenges and opportunities. And that's what we will try and do today. So when I was thinking about this, I gave the topic of the challenges and opportunities in the 21st century, but let us just take 100 years back. And if you are in 1920s and thinking about what are the challenges for the youth 100 years ago in India, you will recognize they must be wondering and thinking about concepts like freedom. Obviously, India was under British rule for a long time, and 100 years ago it was freedom, and colonization was probably one of the biggest challenge for the youth at that point of time. And obviously there was hunger, poverty, and jobs, and this is still to a large extent that remains, but one has to recognize when by the end of 20th century and the beginning of 21st century, majority of it, quite a substantial fraction of the world population have been lifted out of poverty and lifted out of hunger. And I mean, jobs are there are still challenges, but it is not to the level of challenge is not exactly to the same level as it was, let's say, 100 years ago. The other bigger challenge, even after post-independence in the Indian context, was access to information. Information was power. Anyone who could memorize things, anyone who could remember things was considered knowledgeable because the information was available only with with those who can actually remember. There were not so much opportunity like today. Today, information is in your fingertips. So this is a different situation. Access to information was a big challenge. Access to education was a challenge. It still is in many parts of the world, but in India, to a large extent, particularly in the context of Tamil Nadu or in the Indian context, access to information and education is not necessarily the biggest challenge, but it was the challenge 100 years ago. Social stratification was a big problem in India at that point of time. And of course, there was diseases and health, and there are the kind of diseases and health challenges faced by the youth in 20th century are not the same kind of challenges that we are facing. I mean, we are probably, it's kind of timely that 100 years ago we had a previous Spanish flu pandemic in the world. And almost after 100 years, now we are struggling as a whole world. We are struggling under the COVID pandemic. So, some challenges are still remain challenges or some sort of unexpected challenges that shows up. But the kind of challenges that you face in the 21st century are somewhat quite distinctly different. And I want to try and address each one of them, of the challenges that you face in the 21st century. The first one I chosen to take is actually still linking with freedom and colonization. Now we don't have the British. We are meant to be in a free country. But what I observe with my limited travel experiences, looking at different parts of the world, Indian youth particularly still suffer from the problem of colonization. You still seem to look at approval from abroad, approval from others to have a certain confidence about yourself. So the first challenge I would say that the Indian youth faces today is the mental freedom and decolonizing your actual mind. You need to recognize you are competitive at the international level. You need to recognize that your competitor is not your person sitting next to you in your desk, or the person sitting next to you in your another class, or person sitting next to you in another college in Coimbatore. I mean, they are not your real competitors. What you are competing is as a force, as a nation, you are competing against the best. So if you are producing a product, or if you're producing something, don't think about how can I sell it in a short sense. Think about how does it fit in the international context. So you need to recognize that part seems to be still a big problem. So Abdul Kalam in one of his talks mentioned this. He talked about the hardest battle every youth has to fight. He said, which I agree with, he said that, when a youth comes into picture, or any individual comes into the world, they have their uniqueness. They grow into their unique themselves. But the whole world and the whole system doesn't allow you often to be unique. they want you to be like everyone else. So if you want to remain unique, and he said the hardest battle that you have to fight is to prevent others from forcing you to be like everybody else. And that uniqueness is what will make you shine in the world, because you offer something different from what everybody else provides, and that gives you, that opens up doors and that opens up opportunities that you would have never thought of, you wouldn't have come to your mind at all. So it is extremely, and that is only possible if you stop mimicking others. So you need to have the mental freedom and decolonize yourself and actually have the belief in yourself to be able to compete and think that we can outcompete other people. If we think about, can we be in the top 100? You need to think, yes, we can in the first place. And yes, we can contribute because we have some unique features. Every single one of you have certain unique abilities within you, and you should be able to contribute that to the benefit of yourself, to the benefit of your family, to the benefit of your society, and to the benefit of your country. So the first challenge that is ahead of you is to stop thinking low of yourself and start thinking that you are worth something, and your worth is extremely important for the nation building. So that's your first challenge that I wanted to sort of talk to you through. So if you think about it, where do we really fit? Here is what I'm showing you here is a world GDP. What percentage of the world GDP is contributed by each of the countries in the last 2010 years or 2000 years or so. And what you recognize is in the beginning of almost 2000 years ago, India contributed something close to 32% of the world GDP. So we were the powerhouses, we were the superpowers at that point of time. And so is China. So India and China together contributed more than 50% of the GDP. And then that state of the domination of India and China more or less remained almost close to until 1700, not too long ago, almost for the 1700 years of the last 2000 years, India and China dominated the entire world in terms of the productivity, in terms of everything. But it is only in the last 300 years we have kind of lost our kind of power, and we are now trying to come back. And you can see this growth has been very slow, but you can see China is already catching up, and China is already contributing substantially to the world GDP. So we need to recognize, you come from a sort of a nation and a history that is pretty strong. And it's only in the last 300 years we have kind of lost our way, primarily due to, we have lost the boat on industrial revolution, and we have the talent, we have the ability to come back, and that's what you need to recognize in the context of international competitiveness. And the same thing is shown here. So you can see that the orange represents the Indian contribution to the world GDP in the last 2000 years, and you can see we are increasing our share, but not a lot. So we really need you guys, all of the young people, to actually rise up to the occasion and push this much higher. You can see that China has grown quite highly just in the last 20 years. And this is India's time, and this is the time you need to actually push this ahead in the world. Okay, the second challenge is to dream big as well in the context of thinking about competing. So I wanted to just share one small story from my own life to sort of talk about how to dream big. So this is not unusual for us. This has been shown for thousands of years. Again, I'm taking one example from Tirukkural, which says, "Ulluvadellam uyar ullal matrathu tallinum tallamai neerthu." For those of you who can't understand Tamil, it basically means that whatever you think, whatever you aim high. If it doesn't work out, it doesn't matter. But your aim has to be much higher than what you can, always high. Is sort of the gist of the message here. So my group, we were one of the first people in the world to discover a particular type of a genetic mutation that is in a plant system. So this, I don't want to go into the details of it, but it's basically a genetic kind of a defect that's been described outside humans. We described this first time in a plant system. So when we discovered this in the plant system, obviously people think, okay, you're a botanist, nothing and so on. So, they can look at you and put you into your box. But when we were thinking about this, we thought, okay, look, we have this kind of a mutation. In one case, this mutation gives you a certain kind of a problem in a plant. in which is the Arabidopsis is the plant that I work with. So this particular genetic problem gives you a certain trouble to the plant. But what we know is the same type of genetic problem in humans leads to a genetic disease known as Friedreich's ataxia. It's kind of a neuronal disease. So in both cases, we had sort of the gene product not working very well. So we thought, why can't we use plants as a way to address some of the fundamental questions associated with humans? I'm not going to go into the details of the results, which you can talk about it at a later stage if any of you are interested in. But then what it resulted in, last 6-7 years of our work, we were able to make one of the significant contributions to the understanding of this disease. This work was published in a world-leading journal known as Cell. And when we produced this paper, this was the first original plant-based research article to be published in Cell from Australia. No one from India has done it yet in the field of plant biology. So there are very few Indians who have actually managed to publish as a lead researcher in this journal. And among the plant people, there are a couple of them who actually managed to do this. So when we did this in Australia, this was kind of making history in our smaller sphere of academia. But the reason I'm trying to tell you is when you are thinking about thinking about trying to compete at the international level, this is what I'm talking about. Whatever the field, whatever the sphere in which you are actually working, you need to believe that you can compete with the best in the world and then do what it actually takes. Just believing doesn't help. You need to put in the effort, but you put in the effort and you will be able to get there at the end. So that's the first challenge. The second challenge for Indian youth is jobs. So I've kind of changed. Jobs have always remained as a challenge, but I want to posit the idea, the challenge for Indian youth is not getting a job. It's about creating jobs. You shouldn't think yourself about, okay, what job I can get. You need to start thinking about what jobs I can create. You need to be the entrepreneurs who can actually build industries. It is not about, you shouldn't be thinking about how can I get a job in Google. You should be thinking about how can I create the next Google in India? How can I create the next Facebook or TikTok or whatever it is? How can I do that in India is what you need to think about. You should not confine yourself to thinking about getting a job. So the second challenge is actually about creating jobs. Why should we create jobs? Because you have to recognize India is actually a very young country. So here what you are looking here is actually the average age population of the world. So the percentage of population age 65 or over is pretty low in India. You only have about 5 to 10% of individuals. The population in India is actually about 65 or above. So it is on an average, India is a very young country, which means that the entire workforce for the entire world has to be supplied to some degree from India. So and Africa, for instance, that's another continent where you have less number of younger people. But as the second most populous and probably the most populous nation in about 20 years from now, we actually have a moral responsibility to run the world. And that means we need to be able to not only provide jobs, create jobs, or think about jobs for Indians, we need to be able to think about creating this for the entire world. And that's, again, something that people like me or anyone above my age is not going to be able to do this. It's all up to the younger people. And if you think about skill shortages, the people always talk about, what job I get. Very often I get students even in Australia coming and talking to me, okay, what job I can get if I study this or that. And my answer to all of them has been this: the level of mediocrity in the world is so high, even if you do an average job, a little bit better than the others, there is always jobs available. The skills are the ones that are shortage. So if you look at the countries that are facing the greatest skill shortages, I'm presenting a lot of data. Most of this data is actually taken from United Nations or OECD countries databases or the World Economic Forum and so on and so forth. So everything is publicly available. I'm not using anything fancy. Most of them is referred as well here. So you can see around 64% of firms actually talk about skill shortages in India itself. So jobs are there, but it's all about, getting the right. And you can also see where all the skill shortages are there. So many of them are developed countries, which means that if you actually have the appropriate skills, you have job opportunities opening up for you, not only in India, but also for other places. And you can create additional jobs by actually going over there. And if you think about jobs, don't think about jobs that what your father, mother, or whoever is telling you. Think, because many of the current youth are not necessary. I mean, the kind of jobs that you are likely to be doing in 20 years are probably jobs that have not yet been invented. They don't exist right now. There might be new jobs that are out there. For example, if you look at the future jobs, this is just for 2022 projection, which was from the 2018, but it's already changing. But things like you said, big data analytics, web-enabled marketers. For instance, before pre-COVID, nobody would have thought that you would be having so many webinars. Suddenly, you have this opportunity. So when every challenge comes in, opportunities come along with it. So things like, how much web is actually going to go, how much is online shopping is going to go, take over, how much of cloud computing is involved. So all of these new things are out there for you, as long as you recognize it and actually spend your time wisely, rather than spending your time on some really stupid games or sitting down for hours and hours on binge watching videos and useless time. So your time is worth money. You have to recognize that your time is worth the money and actually use that time wisely for your own benefit. Because if you can help yourself, you can help your family. And if you can help your family, you can help your community. And if you can help your community, you can help your country. So recognize, just by helping yourself, you can actually contribute to the country to the best possible way. And the third challenge that we think, which is facing the Indian youth, is to go from service-based economy to knowledge-based economy. So what do I mean by this? So nowadays, if you think about India, a lot of our sectors are service sectors and so on and so forth. There is relatively less manufacturing. So if you look at the countries around the world, so here is another example. So what you are looking here is the amount of money that's from our money spent on research and development as a percentage of the gross domestic product. That is plotted on the x-axis, and on the y-axis it shows the scientists and engineers per million people produced in each one of these countries. And what you can recognize is we are somewhere at the bottom here. We spend about less than 1% of our GDP on research and development, and we produce less than 200 engineers or so for the per million population. So we produce, even though we say that we produce a lot of engineers, but in the context of the global, we do not produce that many scientists or engineers. So what is interesting about all these countries on the top? Finland, Japan, South Korea, Sweden, Singapore, Israel, Switzerland, Germany, United States, France, United Kingdom, Canada, almost every single one of them, the per capita GDP is far higher, and they are developed nations. They are developing because they are running a knowledge-based economy as opposed to a service-based economy. How do we go to the knowledge-based economy? Study well, and help other people to study well as well. Get into the competition. But studying well, am I talking about just scoring good marks? No, I am talking about having a complete understanding and being the expert on whatever you study. What I mean by expert, do I mean that you want to be an expert within your class? No, I want you to be the expert, which, if you're doing your biochemistry, I want you to be the best biochemist in the nation, or you should be able to compete or talk to anyone, interact with people outside the country who are having similar type of situations. So that push towards knowledge-based economy is another challenge that Indians have in ahead of you. And the fourth challenge we have is providing equal opportunities to everybody. And we are a nation of contradictions. Yes, a little bit higher than some of the other countries. Okay, so it will be unfair to say that, we are the only country having this problem. Almost all countries have problems of equal opportunities. I, living in an Australian nation, being successful, often felt in this country that there are issues about equal opportunities. Okay, it may be just that the situations may be slightly different. You have stratification in the context of rich people versus poor people. You have situations in India with respect to, whether you're coming from a village or you're coming from an urbanized situation, whether you are a male or a female has a huge impact on the opportunities that are available to you. And of course, we also suffer from caste disparities, which affect opportunities as well. So we need to be, and that is something that we are, I know that we are doing a lot of work in the Indian context, but still there is quite a bit that we could potentially do to ensure equal opportunities, because equal opportunity means increase in diversity. Increase in diversity means increase in diverse ideas. Increase in diverse ideas means quicker solutions to problems. Quicker solutions to problems means faster growth of the country or the community or the family in general. So for the benefit of everyone, not for any specific community or any specific caste or a gender or a rural or urban setup or a rich or poor, not for any specific subset, but for the benefit of the entire community, we need to try and provide the equal opportunities to the best of our abilities. And then finally, there is a very big challenge that is ahead of all of us, including the Indian youth, which is related to climate change. So this is a huge problem, and we don't know exactly how we are going to solve, but we can try to minimize the impact as much as we can. So minimizing the impact itself is actually saving the problem. So at this point, I want to try and tell you one part of our work, which is related to, so my group studies how plants respond to changes in temperature. So we study this using genetics of mutants. We study this using populations of natural populations, which means that, if you have the mangoes growing in India and you take the mangoes that are growing in Australia, they are all both mangoes, but they don't necessarily same type of mangoes. There are differences. So one can, by studying this, you can try to develop plants or crops that are ready for future climates. So that's the kind of work that we do. If you think about climate change as a global problem, it's got nothing to do with it. You can think about it, I can't do anything about it. But as a scientist, when I am working, I can think about myself, okay, I'm just interested in plants. But combining these things together, then I am just doing my job of being a scientist. But whatever I'm doing can actually help contribute to the solving the problem that's ahead in front of us. And that's the way I want you to think about too. Not necessarily, okay, as a student, what can I do to solve the climate change problem? That's not the way to think. You need to do what you do well, and then you will recognize which are the niche areas where you can contribute and your work can help achieve that success. So as a scientist, I want to sort of try and tell you a little bit about STEM. So this picture is from a movie called Matrix, which many of you would have seen. And, there's a famous dialogue which sort of says that Matrix is everywhere. It's there in your control. It's there in your day-to-day life. It's there when you pay your, bills. It's there everywhere. What I would like to rephrase this is to say that science is everywhere. It is there, from your blood group to beauty. From disease, whether you are susceptible to your disease or to your survival, your past, present, and future, and genetics, for instance, that's our specific things, and that's kind of makes you the unique you. It is everywhere. So going into looking at taking a scientific approach to problems. By that, do I mean that studying science? No, I'm just talking about taking a scientific approach to any problem that you face will help go to the next level. There are some unique opportunities that we have, which makes us in a very puts us in a very unique position to take advantage of several things. And I've already told you, India is a very young country, and we have a huge human potential. So there is one thing to have the potential, and there is a completely another thing to realize the potential. And that's where we need to work on. We need to sort of, for every single one of you, you have potential. Your parents believe in you, your teachers believe in you, your peers believe in you, people like me believe in you, every adult is looking up to you. So we know that you have the potential, but what we are concerned is very often, are you realizing that potential? Are you actually fulfilling? Are you able to get the best out of you? If every single youth is able to get the best out of themselves, you will push the country miles ahead in the global race. So recognize it is about, recognizing and realizing your potential. And we have the value system, for instance, very high value for education in a comical way. If you look at some of the top entrance exams that are run in Australia, and you look at which are the students from which countries people are actually being more successful in the context of our region of the people, you often find Chinese, Indian, Sri Lankan, Bangladeshi, Pakistani, and Jewish people tend to be hogging most of the spots. So there is an inherent value that's given for education in India. So that's something that we can take advantage of and make the most of it. Our education has a lot of problems. We recognize it, but we can take that challenge and actually make it better. And that will make it easier for us to go. You also have to recognize India is a huge market. So, I don't know how many of you know this, but when the TikTok was banned, more than 60% of its consumers were actually from India. So, we have a huge market, which means that our bargaining power in many policy decisions are much higher if we actually do things in the right way. Most interestingly, India is a democratic country, because the other country which has the huge human potential, which can compete quite well with us, is China. But it is sort of an, it's not a democratic setup, but India is a democratic country, which makes things go slowly, but still democracy has its own power. So, it allows anyone to dream to be the leader, for instance, so go for it if you have a possibility. And it is among the fastest growing economies. You have to recognize it. You have to recognize that we are actually the leaders and we can lead the world. And most interestingly, India also has an inherently accommodating culture. We have accommodated different cultures and different types of ideas. For instance, very quickly people adapt to technology. For instance, COVID came, and probably among the countries, if you think which country had the maximum webinars, I'm almost certain India would be among the top countries, because we are very quick to adapt to a problem, and we have our new way of using a particular technology when it is actually available to you. So those are all unique things that makes us to be the global leaders, and the youth actually have a huge potential in contributing to that. I want to finally come and finish off with this take-home message, and I want to tell you this story. And this story was told by Rajinikanth in one of the things, and I just thought I should tell you this. He talked about a story of a bunch of frogs. These frogs were there sitting in one group of well, and there were 3 or 4 frogs were trying to go up and climb. And all the other frogs said, "Oh, no, don't go there. If you go to that particular thing, there is a snake there, there's a scorpion there, then you will fall down." But 3 frogs started climbing up, and then one of the frogs, look, once they reached point number A, the snake is going to finish off and bite, and then the frog is going to fall off. And chuck, one frog, the snake came and bit off, and one frog fell down. The second, other 2 started going up, and then look, once you reach point B, there's going to be a scorpion which is going to sting, and the second frog is going to fall down. Went up, and the second frog also fall down. But the third frog somehow escaped the well. And then the people are wondering, how did this frog escape? And then it turned out that the third frog actually was deaf. It was not listening to anything these other frogs were saying. So the take-home message I want to tell you is, you need to be patient. You need to have a grit. You need to not to have an attitude of not giving up at any point of time. And you need to have an uncompromising rigor of being the best, trying to do the best possible version of you. And then, of course, certain level of deafness to all those people who tell you that you're good for nothing. Recognize that you are something. You have the potential, and everyone believes in you, including all the people in the country believe in you, and you need to now rise up to the occasion and realize your potential. I will leave it there, and I want to thank you, everybody, and I'm quite happy to take any questions that you might have. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Sir, thank you, Dr. Sureshkumar Balasubramanian. This very inspiring talk.
Thank you.
About for the youth. Now we celebrating the International Youth Day through the international webinar. I request the participants, now the session is open for discussion. I request all the participants to discuss about the International Youth Day and related issues, then unique opportunities in India as well as the abroad. Please discuss. The session is open for the participants.
You can ask me anything you want to know. If I know, I will tell you I can answer. If I don't know, I'm quite happy to say I don't know. So just feel free to ask me. Sanjeev Kumar, you have some question?
Yes, sir. I want to ask one question from you, sir.
Yeah.
Sir, I am from Himachal Pradesh, Shimla.
Yeah.
And I am working in school education system, sir.
Okay.
Sir, in Himachal Pradesh, Har Ghar Pathshala program is organized by the government for online teaching learning in schools.
Okay.
But sir, it is a very discouraging factor, sir, because students are not so much taking interest in their studies. So you know that our students are our youth, and our youth is our national property, and we have to motivate them. So kindly suggest some way how to motivate them, sir.
I think we should stop forcing people, in my mind. First thing, I think the thing is, like, we can it will take time. You recognize suddenly we have been the whole world has been thrown into this unusual system in a short period of time. Everybody is struggling to come up with, adjust themselves. And these are young people, so they will take some time. So you need to give them a bit of time to get used to it. And in fact, what we find here, in Australia, we have the same type of online education. In fact, many of them are there, but it is less structured in the sense that there is a bit more freedom. They can do some things by themselves. If we try to run an regular classroom style, where we expect all the students to be with their camera on all the time, and they have to just listen to the teacher and look, it will take some time. It won't work the way that I think the students are not. They are interested. They may not really show it, but you need to give them things that they would be interested in. You need to. It's about the ways in which you can engage that one has to think about. A traditional way of educating may not work. It's a bit harder. We are all learning. I mean, this is I don't have a concrete answer to you. You do this and it will get fixed. But I'm just suggesting a few things that you can potentially try out, because I'm sure that there will be some teachers who are able to engage a bit better than the others, and then you need to learn it from between the teachers who is able to do this in that way.
Hello, sir.
Yeah.
India is a great population that everyone knows that, but in sports field they are not growing or achieving much more. So please tell me about that and what is the solution?
I think thank you for your question. I think we are a great population, but we haven't achieved in anything, to the level, not just in sports. I think we are just scratching the surface. So we haven't achieved anything in the last 300 years in terms of, being internationally competitive. We haven't been. And that is a lot of different reasons exist for that. If you compare some of the sports facilities and even our own mindset, right? How much importance we give it to health is a different question. I mean, we often we may not really encourage. There is a certain concern. The parents may not really encourage individuals to get into sports, and there are many different types of other issues that come into it. But what we could do is to encourage. I believe the new education policy has a certain advantage about increasing sports participation and a sort of a holistic education. Some aspects of the new education policy. I don't want to discuss new education policy here, but I was told that there is some push towards going into making health, physical education as a common thing in the things, and that type of thing will change the mindset, and hopefully it will take us further. We are definitely winning more medals than what we used to, but it may be just few individuals, and then once some inspiration, some role models, you will see more results. So it will take a little bit time. I hope it kind of gives you a feel for it. Dr. Vivedi.
Hello.
Yeah.
Hello. Sir, good morning. Good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you, please.
I am D.K. Dwivedi. At present, I am working as a associate professor in the Teachers Training College in Punjab.
Okay. Thank you for coming. Yeah.
My question is, when Indians go to America or Europe, they prove that they are quite capable of doing things. But whatever economy that we have, that is service-based. It is not knowledge-based. We are not creating new things. Barring ISRO and DRDO or to some extent other organizations, we are not knowledge-based. And how to shift it from service-based to knowledge-based? From where to start?
I think this is I would partly agree with you, but you have to recognize, with the new things like with the new institutions, like even given that you said about Punjab, I said ISER, Mohali, or all the other Indian Institute of Scientific Education and Research out there, as well as for instance when we had this viral testing, there were about 14 labs or so in the entire world that was allowed. For the entire world, there were only about 14 labs that initially had the facilities, and India had one of those labs. So it's not that we are there, we are not there, or we hear individuals, but we don't have the critical mass, and that requires a conscious investment into research and development, and a conscious decision for people to get into those roles. At the moment, very often people get in and then they look for opportunities elsewhere, and wherever the opportunity is there, people follow through. So knowledge-based economy is something that one people have to start thinking, and then it will grow. Because I actually believe for instance, whatever I have done in Australia, I'm almost 100% certain that people in India can do better than me. No doubt at all in my mind. But it's the opportunities are not that easily given, and it takes a little bit of time. So you will see the results, and maybe our generation missed it a little bit, and hopefully the younger generation doesn't do that. So you have more opportunities with the new institutions. Yeah.
Hello. Thank you, sir, very much. Thank you.
Yes, please. Who's this?
Sir, hello.
Hello.
Yeah. My question is, sir, that the privatization of the public sectors leads to lack of many jobs, leads to unemployment, and lot of engineers and right now have their degree in their hands, but they're facing lot of problems. So how to face these type of challenges right now, that the lot of people, they have their degrees in their hand, but no job is there, and the pandemic is also there. So how to face these type of challenges?
Look, I think the pandemic, in all fairness, the pandemic has kind of turned things around drastically for a lot of people in all countries. For instance, the situation is not that different in many developed economies. So looking at the pandemic situation and thinking about it is a bit harder one. I admit that, but we also have to honestly ask ourselves. We have a lot of individuals carrying an engineering degree. How many of those individuals carrying an engineering degree can honestly be the real engineers? I mean, are we providing the kind of, if you have an engineer from, just for the sake of usage, I will say, five different institutions in India produce engineers. Would you rate all the engineers in the same manner? We don't, because there are the quality of the engineers we produce are not necessarily at the same level, and we are not paying that much attention to increasing that quality to make it competitive enough. And so that is one issue. But I completely agree with you. At this stage, it is not the fault of the individual, but it is they are having the degree. But the other way of looking at it, one part where I will disagree is you mentioned that the privatization sort of leads to loss of jobs. I actually think that's not quite accurate, because if you look at even in countries like China, which claims itself to be a communist country, a lot of jobs are actually privately managed. So it is sort of a partnership between private and government at many levels that actually helps create jobs. So it will be very expecting the government to do everything is not. I actually think we have to go. One aspect of moving towards a knowledge-based economy is to sort of help increase entrepreneurship, and that would change things. And traditionally, more Indians have been entrepreneurs in terms of generating jobs by themselves. We were never really a government-based country in general. It has always been like this, in a historic terms. So I would disagree on that part from my experience. Like we are at Monash University is meant to be a government university, but we are on our own. We were to generate our own income and income streams and things like that. Of course, the government supports it to some degree, but in many ways, worked almost like a corporate organization in many ways. So it's not, it's not an accurate thing to just sort of have this feeling that, okay, if the government has it, then we have the jobs. I mean, that's not quite true. If you look at the Indian economy, many government sectors don't do very well. I mean, we have to ask ourselves why students from government schools are not the same quality as the schools from students from other schools. Is that the fault of the student? I can assure it's not true. So we are making some mistakes, and we need to be honest to admit that there are places where we make mistakes, and then we can fix the problem. I hope it sort of answers your question.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Yes. Are there any students there who want to ask anything?
Dear participants, is there any questions?
Hello.
Yeah.
Sir, myself, Mr. from West Bengal.
Yeah.
In this pandemic situation, whether we can say that our youth generation has lost the job opportunity?
Hello. The question is
Hello.
this. I'm repeating the question for the benefit of others.
Hello.
Hello.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I understood the question. I think you're asking, did the youth lost the opportunity due to the COVID situation?
Yes, sir. In pandemic situation, yes.
I would say they are experiencing. I mean, the others, can you please mute maybe? Put your phone.
Hello.
Hello.
Sir, I have a query. I am from Punjab,
Just a minute. I will wait a minute, please. I will answer the first question. So the question was, due to the pandemic situation, did the youth lose the opportunity? I would say that the youth are experiencing something that we have not experienced. It is something different. Have the lost the opportunity is the way one looks at it. So for instance, when I was a student, or when anyone, before the pre-pandemic situation, how many opportunities we had in terms of listening to, anyway, let's say speakers from anywhere in the world? Usually very less. Even if the opportunities exist, we didn't really exploit that. So we are opening up new ways of communicating. We are exploring new things. So yes, some opportunities were lost for sure, which were traditional, but new opportunities open up. So I think only time will tell whether the pandemic actually had obviously in an immediate short-term situation, yes, there are some losses for sure. No doubt about that. But how this would actually impact the world in a long term is a slightly different thing. Maybe there are new things that will come up, new opportunities will show up, and maybe we learn something from it. Maybe we will be more better prepared for dealing with viruses in the future. So every problem provides an opportunity to reach somewhere else. So I think that's something to wait and watch. Whoever was the other person, you can ask the question now.
Hello.
Yeah.
I'm calling from Punjab, from Jalandhar.
Yes.
You see, many people have a and still people because of COVID. So there will be more challenges and more opportunities. I just want to ask you a question that in the next 10-15 years, what are the challenges and opportunities for the skill jobs abroad?
Skill jobs abroad.
Yeah. Because in Punjab and Jalandhar, where I belong to the place, many people have gone abroad. And
yeah.
Almost all people, they're settled abroad.
Yeah. No, I get your question. I think the question is like, okay, look, due to COVID situation, what are the challenges and opportunities abroad?
Right.
Abroad
for the skill jobs.
Skill jobs. I think that one thing you have to recognize is like one of the big things that the pandemic has done is to make countries go very self-oriented, in the sense like every country wants to, many countries were left wanting to prepare. They don't have enough ventilators or enough masks. All the production has to come from China. Many countries had that problem, and nowadays that is not the case. I think most countries want to have some level of manufacturing within their own shores, which basically means there's going to be new, more jobs will be available. So if somebody wants to go, so there's always going to be a requirement for skills. But of course, the airline industry has to open up, and it will take a couple of years. So immediately, the next 2 years, I don't see the same level of influx migration that one would have seen. It is, I don't even know when I will be able to visit India, for instance, right? So, I mean, we don't know this. So we are in an uncertain territory at this point of time. But whether skill jobs there will be a requirement for it, because countries are pushing towards that in the future, in the next few years. That's my kind of assessment. Not necessarily the right one.
Thank you.
Hello, sir. Am I audible?
Yes, yes.
I'm Gurulingam from Hyderabad.
Hello.
I'm Gurulingam from Hyderabad.
Hello, Gurulingam. Please go on. Yeah.
Do you feel that the existing curriculum of various streams, whether it is engineering or science, do you feel that there should be some change? The government or the system should change so that we can shift over to focus on a specific area. Thereby, you can develop the knowledge skills. The curriculum, vast curriculum, because there is no specific area. So, the process of learning everything, ultimately, you land up not knowing anything.
I think, see, that I would answer it in this way. I think, you're talking about, a certain type of situation, but there are differing universities, and each universities and each boards and each of them provide a certain type of curriculum, which may or may not necessarily be equivalent. But I believe the new, there are definitely changes, and I believe the new education policy is trying to bring all of this into sort of a one higher education platform where sort of a similar equal quality education could be provided. There are some efforts towards it, but let's get this straight. Like, the curriculum can have something, but at the end of the day, how people read it, whether you are actually reading the curriculum to pass and get a degree, or you are reading it to understand the subject, is actually nothing to do with the curriculum. I mean, I did my bachelor's of biochemistry in Bardiyar University, and I was able to compete to get admission to do a master's in Baroda, and I was able to compete to get an admission in the Indian Institute of Science based on that master's, and I was able to compete at the international level. So to blankly say that the curriculum has to change is not. I don't think that's the solution. There is curriculum. People can tell you, okay, read about all this or whatever. So that's the way I would address it, rather than just changing the curriculum. But every curriculum has to evolve. Like, we, in our university, every 5 years we review our courses, we keep updating. So that is something, a natural ongoing process that has to happen all the time, because I can't teach the same thing what I taught 5 years ago. Now things are changing, right? So there are new developments, new advances, so you need to incorporate that. So that kind of change, that should keep happening all the time. But how much, what to make, how much people can use it, to a large extent depends on the people who actually use it, rather than the curriculum per se. I hope that sort of helps.
Hello.
Yeah.
Sir, I'm Gurulingam. I agree with you.
Yes.
But here, particularly in the context of Indian education,
yeah,
the curriculum is not being changed according to the need of the hour. Let us hope the new education system, the policy, whatever government is foreseeing now, it may change this particular scenario.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think it's also, what I'm saying is, like, each university has their own syllabus, right? And how, so it is not something that one curriculum. So there are things that differ. What one study, if you study MSc Biochemistry from Baroda, or an MSc Biochemistry from another university, wherever it is, and Pune University or Madurai Kamaraj University, they don't necessarily have exactly the same things. There are differences, and that's something that individually organizations can do to help themselves. And then you expect some sort of an internal competition, which will help in the context of growth, in addition to a policy change, which is what the government is doing. But I'm talking about, each university can have some flexibility there, where they can look at it and sort of see how they can maximize benefit, for sure. So it's not a blanket thing for everything. It's not a one size fits all approach will work, particularly in a complex country like India.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for the discussion.
Thank you. Any other questions? Did I miss anything in the chat? Somebody asked any questions in the chat? I can't roll this well enough.
Dear friends, is there any questions for you? Today, our chief guest is a vast experienced person. He is from Dharmaburi, then switched over to Bharatiya University, and then went to IIT Bangalore, then Australia, China, etc. Through the chief guest, can you get anything from now? Dear friends, can we close this session? It's okay.
We are satisfied with the talk.
Thank
Please
you.
So, on behalf of participants, I express my gratitude to the speaker.
Hello, please audible.
Yeah, we are very much satisfied with the talk.
You are satisfied.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
So no more questions.
No more questions, sir.
Okay,
We
okay.
want
Everything
to
satisfied. Thank you,
positively
sir.
approach the area, sir. It's very good. Thank you so much, sir.
Okay,
The
thank you,
positive way
madam.
you approach pandemic area. Even we suffer a lot, you talk about the positive sides. Thank you so much, sir.
Okay, thank you, madam. On behalf of Dr. SNS Rajalakshmi College of Arts and Science, I want to thank our chief guest, even though he was my student of undergraduate program, but is now developed in a proper manner and now settled in Australia and went to China, etc. I wholeheartedly appreciate his curriculum development and academic development, as well as today's talk is very good. And today we are celebrating the International Youth Year, Youth Day, International Youth Day. It is 12th of August through the international webinar. When we going to such chief guest, in my mind, Dr. SURESHKUMAR be the right person to select the International Youth Day celebration. So that we invite B. SURESHKUMAR BALASUBRAMANIAN, the right person to as a chief guest of this International Day. Then our college principal, Dr. Prem Nazir sir, is elaborately in his keynote address expressed about the youth and their willingness and their assets. So that I also thank our principal and CEO, Dr. Daniel sir. Finally, I thank the management. Without the management support, we can't do anything. And the NSS program officers, Dr. Suresh Kumar, Dr. Ilangovan, Dr. Shyamala Vasanta, all are worked for this international webinar for the past 1 week. I wholeheartedly congratulate one and all. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, all. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.